Welcome back to episode 4 of Reasonable Arguments, News and Nonsense. Jamie and Jennifer are here.
Hey, everybody.
With you on Monday night, December 16th? December 16th.
Oh, yeah. 16th.
Yeah, we haven't done
9 days to Christmas, everybody.
We haven't done a podcast in a little bit. We've been a little bit busy, but definitely wanted to get back on here just to let you know.
Well, we're promising at least once a week, and we've met that. So it's been a week since we've done one.
Okay.
So we started off with 3 in 1 week, and then now we're in week 2. So we'll try to do a couple more.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, as always, we are unfiltered and unedited, so whatever you may hear in the background or whatever we may say is for real.
You get the real here.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about this subject today because for a couple different reasons. For if anybody who follows us on social media saw this weekend. What are you pointing at? Oh, sorry. Jamie is pointing to me for something. If you saw, we were out of town this weekend. Jamie had his company party in Louisiana. And while we were in Louisiana, our Ring camera went off. And anyone who knows me knows that I have cameras set up everywhere. I have 8 cameras around the outside of our house.
Yeah.
And the camera came on and it said there was a person on our lanai, which I knew that camera I had moved and it was sitting on Jamie's grill. And I'm like, and it was 11 o'clock at night here. And I was like, okay, hold on a second. So I went on and I looked, and all I see is this person running through our backyard.
Which is gated.
Which is gated, yes. We have a fenced-in yard. So I went back to my other camera that I must have missed the notification from, and it was right at the gate showing that he tried to open the gate, and when he couldn't open the gate, he jumped the gate. So again, we are out of town. It is
we're sitting there listening to music, having a good time at this party, and you look down at your phone and there's a man running through our backyard, and we're like,
yeah,
what
the
heck is going on?
Yeah, we said more different words than that, but so it was very scary. And my first instinct was I knew our alarm was not set at that moment. It does set every night at the same time, and I have now changed that time, but it was not set at that moment. And so I knew, my first instinct was, could he get into the house? And the other thing is I have a camera in our fireplace room, which I can see the entire house from, but I knew that it was unplugged because of our Christmas lights. So at that point, I couldn't even
Christmas
see.
lights took priority.
Yeah, Christmas lights took priority, so I could not see into the house. So our dog was with my parents, and I immediately called my mother, and I said, please call 911. Tell the cops that I think there could be someone in the house, and because my parents live about 3 miles from us. So they jumped in the car and came over here, and when they got over here, huge shout out to Sarasota County Sheriff's Department. There were probably 8 to 10 sheriffs on site, and they actually had a K9 unit that they brought into the house to look around to make sure that there wasn't anybody in here. And then after they were in here, they had the dog walk through the backyard and traced
him
the
to
scent
a neighboring room
to the back corner where he must have jumped the other fence. So that was that was the most recent incident. And so one of the first incidents that we had, actually probably the second incident, but a little bit closer to home because the first one was in the neighbor's driveway.
Are you going to tell everybody the topic tonight?
Yes, I'm sorry. So getting to the topic of basically gun ownership and having the gun in your house, and what can you use it for. And so, and I bring this up for a couple different reasons. Obviously, because there's so many people that are against gun use, and they think that the guns are the ones that are killing people, when, that is not the truth. It is the person holding the gun that is killing the person. We don't take away cars from people that have, or we don't destroy the cars because people get into car accidents, and, there's a million different things. So, the other incident that we had, again, our cameras went off in the driveway, said there was a person in the driveway. I turned on the camera, and this was at like 4:30 in the morning, and we see 3 hooded people walking through our driveway, checking our doors. And we have had instances where kids were breaking into cars and stuff like that, but at this point there were multiples of them, and they were hooded, so you can't see faces, you can't do anything. So we immediately called the police. Then they showed up, immediately. They were actually able to catch one of them, and turned out to be a 14-year-old, and charges were pressed, not just by us, by multiple people who actually had things stolen. So, but
we didn't even get the opportunity to press charges because they didn't steal anything from us, but they were, they criminally trespassed in a neighbor's garage, took things from the garage, and I think there were 4 or 5 who did press charges because they did get in their cars or their garages and
stole stuff. Yeah, and I know the 14-year-old who it was wouldn't rat out his friends, so I think he's taken the fall for it all. But
and these kids are from Bradenton.
Yes.
So there was, number one, somebody drove them to our neighborhood. So this is an organized criminal activity, and of course the sheriff's department says we don't think this kid's in a gang, and I'm like, of course he's in a gang. They drove down from Bradenton. Somebody drove them into our neighborhood. Somebody picked up the 2 who did not get caught.
Yeah.
So there's some level of organized criminal activity that happened there.
Right. And we live in a nice neighborhood, so there are.
And we were home during that one.
We were home during that one. So, and one of the things that, Jamie and I went through that night was, we do own guns, and, Jamie had said, had he gone out into the driveway that night to confront these people, it could have turned into a very different story. And I'll let Jamie talk about that, because the way that he, the way he talks about this and puts it into this perspective, a lot of people don't think about, but I think it's something that you do need to think about.
Especially this time of year.
Especially this time of year, and the way our world is right now, right? So go ahead and.
So we saw 3 people on the camera, and we have made a decision for ourselves and recommend it for others that we are not going to leave the confines of our home to confront criminals who may be on our property. And so this is a perfect example of why. And that night I secured a gun. I stood in our living room and asked Jennifer to go into the bedroom, prepare to lock the door. If they try to come in the front door, you hope that it doesn't ever come to a firing of any guns, but that's when we were prepared to use deadly force. And the kids moved on. They moved down the road. We called the police. The police came. They saw the kids. We didn't even talk to the police that night for about another hour because they were chasing these kids.
They were chasing them, yeah.
All over the place. And then, so what I said is the gun that I grabbed was
what we saw after watching the video is we saw the 3 in the driveway
leave.
And then there was one trailing.
So there's always, so you have to be prepared that this is organized criminal activity. So they have a lookout, and you can bet that lookout is armed. And so if you confront those kids, there's potentially somebody in the shadows who's watching you. You pull a gun, they're going to shoot you. You don't even know that person's there. We didn't even know that person was there until those 3 kids had already reached the road, and this 4th kid comes out of the shadows, crosses our driveway, and follows the kids to the next house. Mm-hmm. And so I have a revolver, six shots. And I always say, it's, to people who say that we don't need high volume magazines that hold 30 rounds, I always say, they're like, those are weapons of war. Well, you need a weapon of war when the war comes to your driveway. Like we potentially had a war in our driveway that night, because here's the math, folks. I have 6 bullets and 3 people in my driveway. So hopefully they run when bullet 1 goes off. But if they decide to fight, They now potentially, let's say they have a 9mm that holds, I think, 13. That's 39 bullets to my 6, not including the 4th kid in the shadows we didn't know about. And so I always say, it's everybody who wants to argue against guns and like high volume magazines, they assume it's a one-on-one situation, and that's not necessarily the case. We had a 4-on-1 situation. So and at the time we thought it was 3-on-1, but we thought, okay, let's let them leave, call the police, and so I just encourage people that that you do, because the only person by law who is allowed to protect you in your own property is you. Because if there's a riot on your street, and the Reginald Denny riots after the case in Los Angeles, so there the Reginald Denny is a truck driver. He, during one of the Los Angeles riots, they had they basically coordinated. What's that?
They surrounded him.
Well, yes. So the police had surrounded about 6 or 8 blocks, and all hell's breaking loose in those 6 or 8 blocks. They surround this tractor trailer, pull the truck driver Reginald Denny out of the truck, and beat the living crap out of him. I mean, gave him brain damage, beat him within an inch of his life.
Not the cops.
And no, not the cops, the rioters. And so the police are watching this happen. They're holding a perimeter because they've made a decision that the best thing, police are required to protect society first, people and property next. So society comes first. And so they decided in that moment that to protect society was to keep the riot contained within these 8 blocks. And they were going to let whatever happen. Now we have seen this happen in other cities like Portland, Oregon, where they're like, oh, we're going to have an encampment. Or, University of Pennsylvania campus, where they're like, we're gonna have an encampment and have these Palestinian riots, right? And they're like, oh well, and at some point, campus police, or in Portland, as Portland police, decide it's best for society just to contain them in that area. Well, if you have a business in that area, or you have a school in that area, or your children live in that area, you're just out of luck, because they've given that city to rioters. And so it's a weird world we live in, but the truth of the matter is the only people you can count on in a situation is the people who you live in love with, and so you and I were in the home together. We don't have a ton of guns, I grabbed one, you did not. And so so we were at this situation where it's like, okay, well, if they come through the house, we're gonna open fire, or I'll open fire. And so, I wrote a Substack about this, and I said, it's not a gun control problem; it's a math problem, because criminals have the numbers against us in any situation. You have to assume that there's more of them out there than just the one. We have one guy running through our backyard. If we happen to be in our backyard when that happens, and the Saturday previous, we were having a fire in our backyard at 11 o'clock at night.
I think that's what blew my mind, and that's where this really came up for me, because it was 11 o'clock. It was 10:58. He jumped our fence. Now our yard, I mean, we should basically be National Lampoon back here, because we have our house is completely lit up for Christmas. That the lights are on outside all day or all night until dawn, and then our backyard, we have lights lining our yard.
More than 100 landscape lights.
Yeah, along with lanterns that are solar lanterns that are going. And so this man, he ran up our driveway past 2 cameras and motion lights, got to the 3rd camera, and I mean, he looked right at it, but he looked like he grabbed for the hinge, which he thought was the handle. That wasn't the handle, it was on the other side, so he jumped the fence. So he made a conscious decision to pass by motion lights, to pass by a camera, to pass by a house completely lit up, jump in the backyard, and had we been sitting there having a fire or sitting on our lanai
or under the gazebo,
and I truly believe that he did not enter the house because once he rounded the bend, he saw how lit up our lanai was and our house inside. Because at that point, Jamie had mentioned, well, maybe he was running from someone because he was running, up the driveway, up to the backyard. Now, keep in mind, our yard is the only one that is fenced on our street, and our yard is probably one of the only ones on our street that does not have direct access to a main road.
So if you're crossing the street, and this is why I think that, is that when you're crossing the street, you can clearly see that there's a dark path through our neighbors' yards that
Both
lead
sides.
to another street.
Both sides, yep.
But where he came, there was certainly a dark path that he could have taken. But the fence is lit up from landscape lighting, so he knew he was running towards a fence. He was trying to get on this side of the fence.
Yeah.
And we see him, and he's jogging, not full blown run up the side of our house, and so I think he was probably running from something.
Yeah, but I mean, and I know you say that, and I know you make a joke about it that he got caught with someone's wife.
Extramarital activities.
Yeah, but what if he truly just hurt somebody and he was running to get away from that, And then and if that is the case, I truly believe that had our lanai been dark, he would have taken. Hidden out there.
Tried to at least hide it in the lanai.
But then, so here's where my question comes in. Now, Florida's a stand your ground state, right?
Without a doubt.
But do we have that right if he jumps our fence and we're sitting around the fire and we don't know who this guy is and he's running at us? Do we have the right to shoot him?
Well, in the past we haven't carried a gun out to our fire, but we may have to start. And so the truth of the matter is you have the right to protect yourself and your property at any time in Florida. And stand your ground is almost a law that covers if you're not in your personal property. So, yeah, he criminally trespassed
outside.
He criminally trespassed when he jumped our fence. Like if you have an open fence, you could argue that somebody felt like it was an open invitation or whatever. And we've done that before when we've had fires. We told the neighbors, like, hey, the fence is open. Come on back, and we're having a fire, BYOB, and come out and join us if you want to, right? And so, but we would probably open the fence if we did that. Or maybe not, just because of the dog or whatever. But these fences are obviously closed and locked, and he jumps it, right? And so there's no question he criminally trespassed, and the law would be on our side. Now the question becomes, was he a threat? And like if you're standing on your lanai and somebody's running through your backyard, and you just take target practice of somebody running through your backyard, you may have a harder take than if you're sitting at a fire and you're confronted with a stranger, and you're like, there has to be some level. I wouldn't feel comfortable just shooting that guy as he's running through.
If we were on the lanai, no, I would understand that.
Or even at the fireplace, I wouldn't have felt comfortable shooting him. I would have been like, dude, and I think we would have found out then, are you a threat, or do we need to do something? And we do have things like steel pokers and everything.
So say this guy comes in your property and he's like, I'm trying to get away from somebody. Somebody's chasing me. Do you take his word for it? Are you like, hey, come on in, let us protect you?
No. Keep moving. I think I would say keep moving. Like, move along. And if he keeps moving along, not my problem. I'll still call the police and be like, hey, somebody just criminally trespassed. But because it's not necessarily my job to police that man. Like, I think that's one of the things where too many citizens, because of our phones, feel like we are responsible for policing other people. And I had a friend of mine who I love dearly, and she went through Starbucks, and the car in front of her, she's a mom, and puts her kids in car seats like most moms do, but the car in front of her had kids jumping around, didn't have them in car seats. There happens to be a cop in the parking lot of Starbucks, And she goes over there and says, you know, you need to go talk to that mom about having her kids in a car seat. And the cop's like, you need to mind your own business. And I think that's the right thing, right? Because, well, and she did the right thing by telling the police, right? She didn't confront the mom. Too many people want to confront the mom. A perfect example, and you've said this before, it's like, oh, a puppy in a car, right? I'll break that window. Well, in Florida, you better not break it without calling 911 first, because you're breaking and entering and destroying personal property, even if there's a dog locked in the car. So now, if 911 instructs you to break the window to save the car, that's the dog. That's a different story. But too many people are full of bravado, like, you know, I'm going to go save the dog. Well, if you break my window in a parking lot, you might have the ability to get shot doing that, because now you're attacking my personal property, which you are allowed to stand your ground on in Florida. If you're attacking my personal property, I have the right to protect my personal property, and a car is personal property. So, you know, so everybody just needs to, if you need police, call police. Don't think that you're the police. You're not responsible for policing another person.
You're not comparing oranges. I mean, I get where you're coming from, but you're not comparing oranges to the oranges here. You know what I mean? You're that's a whole different situation. We're talking about someone, you know, infringing on your property. So, you know, is the front yard different from the backyard if the backyard is fenced in? You know, so...
Well, you're not going to shoot somebody coming up to solicit to try to sell you vacuum cleaners at your front door, right? And they're trespassing, but that's not a criminal...
Even if we have signs
they're trespassing, but it's not...
How do we know that's what it is?
I wouldn't consider that a criminal trespass. You know, a criminal trespass, you're jumping across the fence, you're taking something, you're engaging in a behavior that's not normal. Like, now, somebody trying to sell you a vacuum cleaner at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, that's a different story. But, you know, so there's a fine line. You can't just walk out and shoot a solicitor because they're on your property. And you were like, oh, I felt afraid, right? And there was somebody in Ocala who had a kind of falling out with a neighbor and just went to prison for the rest of her life because she's like, well, I was inside my house. The neighbor was aggressively knocking on the front door, and I shot through the door and killed her. Well, no.
I had that happen to a friend, and the guy is not charged.
Well, I'm just saying.
Same exact thing. Killed her dead, through the door, not charged.
So, in Florida?
No, Pennsylvania.
And she argued stand my ground. They're like, well, the door is closed. So, there wasn't imminent danger. So, there's a level of danger that needs to be taking place. Now, I think if you're minding your own business in your backyard and a stranger jumps your fence and starts running through your yard, I think you can assume danger, right? Like, there's some level of assumption of danger. Now, do you convince a jury of that? You know, and do you want to go through a year of trying to have your life ruined by being arrested and prosecuted and convincing a jury of that?
You're not thinking in that moment. I mean, you're not going to sit there and think, okay, do I want to go to jail for the rest of my life, or do I not confront this person?
Again, if that guy
we don't know if he was running all. I mean, we can't assume anything on what this person was doing.
So let's go through the process of, let's assume he's running from someone and he's running through the backyard, and we are sitting at the fire, music playing, drinks in hand, and this guy runs through and he sees us. He's going to do one of two things. He's going to stop and be like, sorry guys, whatever. Or, you know, he's never going to stop. He's going to keep running. And so then it's like, once that confrontation happens, like, or he's going to be, I'm a criminal, I'm armed, and what the confrontation isn't, sorry guys, but I'm here to hurt or take from you.
Yeah.
Right? And so then there's the decision of, okay, what do you do now? Right? Like, so, but, you know, I mean, and we sound like we live in this like crime-ridden neighborhood. The only difference is we're about 3 miles within the interstate. And so you run into, in particular with the 4 boys, it was, you know, they're just coming down the interstate and trying to find a fairly nice neighborhood near the interstate. And
we weren't their only neighborhood. They were hitting those guys.
Yeah, they were professionals.
We found out. But this guy was completely different story. And
and there's lots of, so today there's a lot of news about guns. So there was a school shooting yesterday. A Charlotte County sheriff's officer was shot and killed during a traffic stop by a rifle. Somebody had a rifle in their car and killed him. And then right before we came on air, the White House puts out a press release that we need to stop the gun violence and take everybody's guns, and red flag laws.
Every school shooting.
And the truth of the matter is, this particular school shooting, apparently, the student took his own life and was a boy who converted to a girl and was on hormone blockers, and I'm not sure if he had surgery or not, but supposedly he's on hormone blockers. And, this is about, I don't know, third, fourth, fifth school shooting from trans kids. And so, we need to start thinking about the mental health that these kids are going through and the problems they're facing.
Well, I understand where you're going with that, but I think anybody who takes somebody's life like that has mental illness. I don't care if they're trans or whatever they are. I think it's mental illness in general that needs to have a bigger...
Well, sure, and some of it's bullying, some of it's whatever, but this is a real problem. The problem here is there's a line in political philosophy in our country right now that wants to normalize trans behavior, and those of us who think that it is a mental illness. And it is, listen, if an adult wants to do what an adult wants to do and they cope with whatever they've dealt with in their life, coping however they do, and they want to be trans or hormone blockers and they can afford it. Now, I don't want my tax dollars going to pay for it. I don't think you should be able to do it in prisons. I don't think, any of that. I don't think it's a right that you could force me to pay for that through extracting my taxes, right? But if an adult wants to do that, it's fine. But I think we've normalized and even supported and glorified this behavior in children. And so somebody, and we've all gone through phases when we were kids. And this is something I don't think that a lot of people realize. They all feel like we were the only ones, right, who faced some level of scrutiny during school or some level of bullying. It's kind of like, well, bullies were always the bullies. Well, no, bullies have been bullied. That's one of their coping mechanism is bullying. And so, so I'm not saying that that's a correct behavior to bully. I'm just saying that we need to understand that, like, all kids at some point go through, like, I'm abnormal. I'm the only one. We all have faced that and believe that at some point in our life, at some point of our growing up, and, and to sit there and say, okay, when somebody's going through that, to say, okay, you're really a girl. You look at me at 6 years old. I had a sister who was 3 years, almost 3.5 years older than I was, and I would wear her leotards, and we would dress up as Batman and Robin. Her name's Robin, but we would be in onesies and leotards, right? And so my best friend was a girl, so I played more girl, and I looked up to her, so I played more girl things than she played. This makes
so much sense.
So then she played boy things, right? But it didn't make me a trans kid. But now a parent is seeing that and like, oh, I want to be so accepting and so in tune with my kid that instead of letting the kid come through that phase and being, a boy, it's like, oh, you're just being you're being true to who you are now. And I was being true to who I was. I was a 5-year-old gay boy. You're a gay little boy,
What if you? But what if?
And by gay, I don't mean homosexual. I just mean you're just a little boy.
But what if you would have continued that pattern? I mean, your mother didn't, or your parents didn't stop you from wearing leotards and onesies and stuff like that. But what if you continued that pattern? And
you can continue that pattern as much as you want into adulthood, and then decide as an adult what you want to do.
You don't think that that's more emotional abuse, doing that to a child, not letting them feel the way they want to feel?
They can feel however they want to feel. I think it is criminal and is abusive to give children hormone blockers and to allow them to have sex change surgeries.
How old was this person that was the shooting at the school?
I'm not sure. Teenager. I mean, I saw a picture of him. Looked teenager, preteen, 12 to 14-ish is the way he looked. You know, like somebody said to us the other day, it's like everybody under 30 looks like a teenager now. But
well, how's that even allowed? How are you even allowed to do that?
Do what?
To do that at this point. I mean, because there's certain medications that people can't take until they're a certain age, and certain, like,
right,
I don't
exactly.
Like, I guess that point I don't understand as
right.
far as children.
So there, certain people have said, you know, they're just trying to normalize. They're trying to normalize gay little boy behavior, in my opinion, into like, oh, this is. Obviously, you're a teenager, and I'm not trying to take anything away from somebody who is gay, right? Like if they're gay and you're or whatever, like I'm not trying to force anything other than we as society have a responsibility. We don't allow children to play with guns. We don't allow them to have guns. We don't, like you said, there's certain medications that children aren't allowed to take. We certainly don't allow children to drink or smoke cigarettes or any of these other, quote, life-altering behaviors. Why would we allow a child to have a sex surgery?
Well, we're getting off topic, so that may be a discussion for another day. But I don't know, because I think we may disagree a little bit on some of that. Not necessarily the drugs, but some of that.
We'll leave it for another day, but I'm pretty adamant that you don't allow children to make life-altering decisions as children. We don't do that. We don't allow children to make those decisions.
Okay.
So if you're a parent and you're foisting that on your child, you're committing child abuse. If you, as a parent, are pushing that on your child, that's a form of child abuse, and I'll stand by that.
Okay. All right, so back to the gun issue. So you said the White House came through today saying that they were going to ban guns.
Well, it's the same old, like, assault weapons. I don't know what kind of weapon was used in the school shooting today, but I'm sure we'll find out more, and many people who are listening to this already know more. And, but it's the same thing. It's a, what was the recent shooting where everybody's just kind of, the shooting of the CEO, right? Mm-hmm. No White House press conference on that. No White House press release saying, oh, let's get rid of guns on that, because there were political people on the left who supported the shooting of this CEO.
Or when Trump was almost assassinated.
Nobody said get rid of guns, right? And so
who said it on social media, just to make this point? Was it Tom that said, they've talked more about the CEO being killed than
Trump,
the assassin, other than crooks. Yeah. They have, like, you don't even hear about crooks anymore.
Yeah,
like done and over.
It's all hypocrisy.
Yeah.
So it's just more Democrat hypocrisy. But the number one argument, and I've made this to many liberal people, and and it's kind of funny because one of my friends who I meet here, I won't use his name on the podcast, but I meet for lunch on a regular basis. He's the Democrat state committee man, or running for Democrat state committee man, and long-term Democrat political consultant from Pennsylvania, from Philadelphia, and I really like him. And I told him, I was like, it's a math problem. And he looks at me and he says, Jamie, I disagree with you, but that's the most intelligent argument I've heard. And it is, because he knows, I know, we all know that if you call, even the other night, like the police were here super fast, 6 minutes, 4 to 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If you're confronting that person, we're at our outside fire pit, and we're confronting him. 6 minutes is forever.
Oh my God.
Forever. And so, in that 6 minutes, the only people we could count on are the two of us, right? If we're standing at the fire by our place, this guy jumps the fence. We're on our own for those 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, whether it's 6 minutes or 60 minutes or 60 days, you're going to be on your own, And so, you have to, in a hurricane, what do they tell you? 72 to 96 hours. What kind of crap can happen in 4 days?
Yeah.
You could have a lot of looting, a lot of criminal activity, and that's why in Florida during a hurricane, they lifted the concealed weapons permit requirement. You're allowed to take your gun with you wherever you evacuate to. So maybe they'll say you're not allowed to take your gun into an evacuation center. However, in the car outside or whatever, you no longer need a concealed weapon permit to have your gun.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things in Florida that we do to protect individuals, and we need to make sure that as we have these debates, that we understand the practical application of them. And I think a large magazine is probably a gun that has a large magazine is in our future very soon, quite frankly, because you just don't know what numbers you're up against until the second you're up against them. And if you don't have those numbers in the barrel, you're out of luck.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a shame to, just not even feel safe in your own home. And I can't even imagine being, if we were sitting on our lanai or sitting in our fire pit and that happening. I just can't even imagine. I mean, it was hard enough being, states away and feeling.
Well, our house does not look like it. We were not here.
No.
That's for sure.
No.
And so this person was pretty brazen.
Yeah.
To do what he did.
For sure. All right. Well, I guess that is the news portion of it, and then we will go into the nonsense portion.
Thank goodness.
Which is always a little bit more fun. So, don't know if you heard this, but a mother is suing Mattel over a porn website that was printed on the Wicked doll packaging.
Okay, so this is a month or so ago this happened, right? So,
yeah.
Okay. I'm barely knowledgeable of it.
Yeah. So she's suing because she's saying that her daughter accessed the link, which I did too. And so the link is www.wicked.com. So the daughter went to it, but it says you must be 18 and you have to verify that you're 18. So this little kid decided to say that they were 18 to go into the site, I guess, and now has emotional distress over the photographs and everything that they were seeing. So the mistake was spotted last month and was recalled on November 1st, all the dolls, and the class action lawsuit is now being filed in Los Angeles. She said she gave a doll to her daughter, who then visited an adult entertainment website through the link. She said both her and her child were horrified by what they saw, suffering emotional distress. She said she would not have bought the doll if she had known about the mistake, which I don't think anybody would have. I can honestly, I'm not laughing at this, but I can kind of see where this is just a complete typo. It should have been wickedmovie.com, and they just forgot the word movie. So,
but I'll be honest, if you have a blockbuster movie called Wicked, right? The Broadway play has been around forever. I'm sure the Broadway play's been around. Probably the web site came along afterwards, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
You would buy it.
But would I buy it?
No, you would buy the website. If you're part of Mattel or part of whoever,
you call the website something different, like Wicked. If you know that Wicked is a porn site, and you have to assume that they did, because that's probably what they wanted.
Sure.
And so then they went like, oh no, we're going to do Wicked Movie is now the website that we're going to use.
Yeah.
You're already, like, I don't want to say you're criminally liable for that, but you're just stupid.
Yeah.
You're a stupid person.
Yeah.
Because you should come up with a different website that doesn't start at all with a, because how many of us how many of us would start typing in Wicked Movie and it comes up Wicked and you just hit yes, right? You just go boom. Oh, so this is a, the fact that it's a typo is complete. I'm not buying it. So now, like, I get.
I think it's truly just a typo. I think it truly is.
Well, I'm
just
not saying they're trying to drive people to this porn site, but I'm also like, you are not being a good steward of our children and our children's toys if you know Wicked was a porn site and you decide to put Wicked Movie on children's packaging.
Yeah.
Now, if we could also have the argument of, okay, well, how much is this lawsuit for? And
11 million. Oh no, I'm sorry. It is for the lawsuit seeks at least $5 million in damages for anyone in the U.S. who bought the Wicked dolls with the error on the packaging.
So you have to assume tens of thousands of people, right?
Yeah.
Tens of thousands. Go on eBay and buy one of these Wicked dolls now and send it to our granddaughters and they're set for life, right?
Yeah.
And so, so I don't necessarily buy the, every kid in America who has a Wicked doll deserves $5 million for it.
Yeah.
Right? That seems a little extreme. But, should the people who made this mistake probably be run out of business so they're never able to make such a, because they're obviously too stupid to be selling toys to children.
Well, they have to have a printer. Mattel didn't. Mattel had the printer, but someone had
proofread
to proofread it. Yeah, exactly.
I'll proofread every one of my mail pieces and every website on it and type it in, every single one. So, how somebody didn't do that is negligent. So there is a level of negligence here. To me,
this is supposed to be a fun story.
Yeah, I get it, but it's how much quote damages somebody should get. $5 million.
Well, the girl shouldn't have said that she was 18. I mean, come on.
Well,
that
okay, you can make that argument. Like if you're the Wicked.com people,
absolutely,
you're like, we're not liable at all.
I mean, it's a huge front sheet or front home page that goes on about everything about being old enough, and you have to manually click.
So does the little liar deserve $5 million? Probably not.
No.
Does she deserve something? I would say maybe 5,000.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
That's
not
normally how these lawsuits go.
Do you think they had a gag reel at the end of the movie Wicked? I'm glad you started.
We're gonna have to click.
I'm glad you started laughing, so I didn't have to explain it.
We're gonna have to click the 18 or older button on this podcast.
All right, everybody. Well, that is the end of episode 4. Kind of went on a big tangent there on a couple things, but I think we just all want to be safe and in our own homes and feel safe. So do what you got to do, and
don't go out in your driveway to confront people for sure.
Yeah.
Or if you see somebody in your driveway, but listen, folks, I'm not going to encourage you to buy guns for Christmas, but you should go buy cameras. And that is one of the best things Jennifer has done.
I'm going to tell you guys right now. Yes. Well, no. Sorry. Yeah, because you never interrupt me. I will tell you that we have the Ring alarm, and they were fantastic too. And I think for like $200 you can get an alarm, and I think it's a 5-piece set. It comes with a couple cameras. It comes with an indoor sensor, and when our alarm was going off after the fact, and it wasn't on, that was just because it wasn't set yet, but Ring did call. So
Like within
within
3 or 4 minutes.
not
like
even. I think it was in 2 minutes
like
they
alarm,
called.
but the alarm was going off the whole time, and so and there were no attempts to set it off. Like I'll let it.
Well, because I said it, and then the cops came in.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Yeah. So, but I will say it's cheap. $200. You can protect your home. For anybody listening who has any
By the way, we're not getting a cutback.
Talking.
We're not getting a kickback.
I will if you want to reach out to me. I will get you a link and get my affiliate.
Okay. So you can get that on Ring.
Absolutely.
Oh, good.
I think so. Oh, maybe not. Probably not. But anybody listening that has ill intent, don't come to our house, because I'm not putting up with this crap anymore. This is my property, my house, and I am going to feel safe here no matter what I need to do. So that's just my little public service announcement for today.
If we have to put rattlesnake pits up.
Oh, I hate snakes. So thank you for joining us on episode 4. As always, we will be back hopefully soon, and keep your arguments reasonable and your nonsense fun. Bye.
Bye.